Hey everybody, this is Environmental Social Justice with your host Wendy Nystrom. Welcome back, Michelle Edelman. She was with us a couple times in the past, and we welcome her back to talk about crossover meats. So welcome back, Michelle.
Oh, thank you. Do I get to be like the most repeat visitors on the most random
Actually, I think you are.
From the farm in Africa to Infinite Foods and now crossover.
And crossover, this is the second time crossover's been on. So I think you are the most repeat, which is awesome because you are doing amazing things and I love talking to you. So it worked out.
Yeah. Well, crossovers, it's been a long haul. So I guess that's why we get the repeat.
But you stuck with it. Now, before we jump into crossover, I want people to understand that you have a pretty cool background. You were doing management consulting for a number of years. You had this epiphany to work in the food industry and make it better. What caused that transition to go from New York management consulting, Fifth Avenue to I'm going to make food better for everybody?
Right. Well, I took a little sojourn through Africa in the process, which is kind of how all of this kind of came to fruition. So I worked for Accenture for, 21 years.
Oh, wow.
Had been recruited away to be the CEO of a new healthcare startup in New York. And that's really where I got the kind of entrepreneurial bug. It was a private equity firm that started these new businesses from scratch. So they basically handed you this 10-page paper business plan and some money and said, go turn this into a company. I'm like,
no pressure.
Okay, I'll figure it out. But after we had successfully launched that company, I had had some nonprofit work that I had been doing in Africa in the background. And I decided that I was going to take what I thought was like kind of a 2-year sabbatical-ish and go spend some time in Africa. And what I really wanted to do was to try to create small businesses that would create employment for women. Because through our foundation, which is 𝗖𝗵·ԥહિ𝗴𝗲.com, if anybody wants to check it out, it's called the Impact Fund. We do a lot of work with women's empowerment, cultural heritage, and advocating for early childhood education. And I hated fundraising. So I thought better way to create sustainability than to actually create some businesses that would create long-term sustainable income for women. So I went to Botswana and, I literally sold my apartment on Park Avenue and packed up my worldly belongings and moved to Africa. It's one of those weird things you do.
Terrifying. That's a big change.
I think whatever. Well, there's lots of jokes about that, but I'm like, like when you go to Botswana with your Jimmy Choos, right? And you're like, I'm standing my shoes. But anyway, I started looking at these various businesses I want to start, and my investment thesis was all around I wanted to use technology as a catalyst to create change. I wanted to create new businesses that did new things, right? Because there's a lot in Africa, there's a lot of trade, right? There's not a lot of manufacturing outside of the metals and mining business. So I wanted to make stuff because I'm an engineer by education. So, and then I wanted obviously to create employment, and I wanted whatever I did to be environmentally sustainable. So I looked at all sorts of things, made all sorts of mistakes. I bought a recycling plant. I invested in some solar projects. But the thing that I kept on coming back to that I really loved and was passionate about was food and agriculture. So at first I started this fresh produce business in Botswana where we put these very high-tech hydroponic greenhouses in Africa and figured out how to grow food locally and create a new local supply chain around fresh produce, which was kind of a new idea because most of the food was being transported in from, miles and miles and miles away. And so once I had done that, I was like, okay, so I've kind of figured out this model for fresh produce and removing the spoilage out of the supply chain and increasing the freshness and the nutrition of the fresh produce by being able to deliver it daily to consumers. I was like, what's the next big food security thing I want to tackle? And that was protein. So I actually started a plant-based food business because I don't eat meat. Which is also kind of a long story about how I got to stop eating meat. But I started this plant-based food business called Infinite Foods, and we started working with all of the major plant-based food brands like Beyond Meat and Oatly and Miyoko's and bringing them into Africa. And along that while I was working on Infinite Foods, I had an opportunity to get introduced to a professor who had worked in Stanford and the same lab doing the same research with Pat Brown, alongside Pat Brown, the founder of Impossible Foods, where they were studying the molecular makeup of meat, right? So they're trying to understand, like, why is meat meat? Because Pat is a lifelong vegan and really upset about the impact of, livestock on the environment, and wanted to go off and create Impossible, which he did. And that was super cool that he figured out how to recreate lean muscle protein and fat and hemoglobin out of plant-based ingredients. But one of the other gentlemen in his lab said, you know what, this is great, right? There's some small challenges. One is these plant-based alternatives are very expensive. So it'd be very difficult to, solve global food security and save the world with at the time, $6 hamburger. The next problem is this just requires a huge behavior change, right? So, and even now, despite the fact that I love the industry and I'm still very involved in the industry, plant-based meat is really only about 1.3% of retail market share. So it really is, despite all the hype, right, there really is only a small amount of consumer adoption. And 98% plus of people are still buying and eating real meat. And so this professor had gone back to the drawing board and basically said, how can we recreate meat in a way that is much more environmentally sustainable, but keeps true to the core precipices of what meat is made out of, which is basically protein, fat, and hemoglobin. And he basically figured out that if you just replace the lean muscle, the majority of the lean muscle protein with chicken and leave everything else the same, so leave the beef fat in there, leave the beef blood in there, you can actually recreate ground meat, but it's mostly made out of chicken. And I had a chance to meet this professor, and we're in this cafe in Palo Alto, and he's explaining it to me. And, I'm living in Africa at the time. So I'm thinking to myself, this is bloody brilliant, right? So because, we're working really hard to try to create a more sustainable food system. I've got this plant-based food business, which I love, but it's actually really hard and it's growing, but we're not going to change massive amounts of people's behavior to create a more sustainable solution this way. So how could we do this in a way that was highly scalable, very affordable, all natural, clean ingredients, and actually real meat? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And I was like, well, why did I just say that? But I did. So in 2019, brilliant timing on my part. I'm like, hey, let's just start another
brilliant timing.
So we spent most of 2019 putting together our go-to-market strategy, working on the recipe, because we wanted to make sure that we could commercialize the recipe and make it work. And I really was committed to making sure we had really wholesome, clean ingredients. I didn't want to, anything about the meat industry. There's all sorts of nonsense in most of the ground meat. And a lot of the ground, not to say most, and a lot of the ground meat that you buy. And so I wanted to make sure that we were really using the highest quality ingredients. So we worked on the recipe. We started looking at ingredients and what kind of ingredients we wanted to use, and landed on using kind of whole breast chicken meat as our lean muscle. Found a fantastic manufacturer who's in San Diego, small mid-tier, privately held meat processor, newest meat processing plant west of the Mississippi, unparalleled food safety track record, never had a recall. I'm like, okay, these are my kind of people. And we were kind of like all ready to go to market in Q1 of 2020, and whatever, the world came.
We know what happened.
So we kind of put the company on ice and, just kind of gave it some oxygen and water for a couple of years, and then really started getting back into the market in 2022, 23, started selling. It's a year sales cycle to get anything going in the food industry. So we landed our first deal in the end of 2023, and we launched in retail in 2024. So it's super exciting.
Very exciting.
Definitely has tested my patience and my resiliency, which I always talk about when I talk about entrepreneurship.
Resiliency is important.
Yeah, it really is. So yeah, so we launched in Giant Food, so 165 Giant Food stores from Washington, D.C. up into Delaware in May, June of this year. And then we just launched last month in the Giant Company, which is 190 stores mostly in Pennsylvania. So we're now gone up into Pennsylvania. And then we are just waiting for the purchase order to launch into Allegiance Retail Services, which is the kind of retailers in New York City. So it's Pathmark, Foodtown, Gristedes, Morton Williams, D'Agostino's, Greenway Markets in the Metro New York area. And then super exciting news in Q1, we will be in 1,100 Food Lion stores.
Wow, that's huge.
On the Eastern Seaboard, and we are going to be launching on Walmart. Hopefully, and we're still working with Walmart on where our first stores are going to be, but hopefully they're going to be in California.
Yeah, I was going to say, when are you coming west? Because
I know I'm trying. I've been trying.
I know, and I've tried. Like, you guys sent me some samples last year, or God, I think it's 2 years ago now. And I made it. I had the chicken and the beef, the chicken and the lamb, and the chicken and the pork, which are the 3 flavors you offer, and it's fabulous.
Yeah,
it's utterly fabulous. Even my husband was like, because I told him you're launching. He's like, so we can buy it. When can we buy it? And he's a tough sell. I'll be honest. He's very much into going to the butcher, talking to the guy, getting the right cut of meat. He loved it, and he really actually liked the I believe it was the pork one he really liked. And he's like, I could make a sauce out of this, and I'm like, hey, you go. And just so people fully understand, when we talk about crossover meats and the chicken and beef and lamb and pork, it's a blend. So you're getting mostly chicken, which is healthier for you, less of a carbon footprint. It's just better overall. We all know chicken's better. And then when you add in that beef or that lamb or the pork, you're getting that flavor. So it tastes like a really juicy burger that's awesome, but you're not going to get all the bad stuff that comes with eating a lot of red meat, as simply put as possible. And the carbon footprint aspect is amazing, because most people don't realize that, our industrial farming, our industrial agriculture is not great for the environment. And if you actually saw where some of our livestock came from, you might not want to get it.
Well, it's interesting, because I think that, there's so much focus around sustainability. And I think that, and consumers say that they want to buy sustainable, right? I mean, 60 to 70% of consumers say that they consider sustainability when they're making consumer choices. The challenge is nobody really wants to give up anything to get sustainability, right? You don't want to give up. You don't want to have to pay more money. You don't want to give up on, when it comes to food, right? You don't want to give up quality. You don't want to give up taste and texture. And so this is kind of the whole package, right? It gives you that wonderful taste and texture. It's really affordable. It's generally 10 to 20% cheaper than regular ground beef, pork, or lamb on the shelf. Wholesome, clean ingredients, no allergens, no soy, no fillers. And
which we need more of that. We don't need the garbage.
We grind it pretty lean. We generally grind to about an 85-15 lean point. So we have very high protein. And so like our chicken and beef burgers, like a 1/3 pound burger has 32 grams of protein, right? That's
a lot.
It's a lot. Right.
I know a lot of, I actually know people who are triathletes or Ironmen, and they're always talking about packing as much protein into their diet as possible. Yeah. This is ideal for them.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
They can get like their entire day's worth of protein with one serving. That would be amazing.
Yeah. So, what's really interesting about what happened, and, this is what happens when you start a company from nothing, is, according to the patent and the recipe, this is supposed to be effectively exactly like 100% ground beef.
Yeah.
What we found after we actually produced the product, having, sourced the ingredients properly and then taken everything through testing and so forth, is the product does taste just like ground beef. And we've now done these 3 flavors. So we have a chicken and beef, chicken and pork, and chicken and lamb, which is really cool because it's a very accessible lamb that's mild and very affordably priced. But a couple of things have come out, because it's actually not exactly like ground beef. So a couple of things have come out through the R&D process. One is, from a culinary perspective, it's beautiful. Like, I mean, if your husband, I mean, people are really passionate about their meat, right? And so if we don't produce
So you
fantastic
get a guy by a grill?
we'll never get repeat customers. So one of the great things about the product is it has a really nice bite to it. So it doesn't get tough.
Yeah.
And like, so when you start turning the product into meatballs or meatloaf or lasagna or tacos, or even a burger that's cooked to temperature, which you probably should do,
Yes.
you have just a little more tender bite to it because of the ground chicken, which is really great. And then the other thing is, because most of the protein, 60% of the protein is coming from chicken, when you start flavoring it and you add sauces or seasoning or marinades, those flavors really shine through in a really beautiful way, because that chicken protein is very neutral compared to, say, a lean beef, right? Which is going to overpower your seasonings and sauces. So you end up with recipes that perform incredibly well.
Oh,
and then so that was kind of like a surprise for us on the culinary side, because we thought, oh, this is going to be exactly like ground beef, but actually we think it's actually better than ground beef. And then on the nutrition side, again, we're grinding it fairly lean so that it can be a better for you product. Because I think when people are buying something that's got a high degree of chicken in it, they expect it to be better for you. So I don't want to be grinding this to a 25% fat product.
Yeah.
So we do that, but the protein content is actually just a couple of grams higher on a per serving basis if you compare our product to, kind of the equivalent on the beef side, and excellent iron content. All right, because we're using beef blood as an ingredient, which is actually a really cool ingredient, not very commonly used in the United States, but it's the world's best bioavailable source of iron.
Oh yeah.
And, so again, 20% of your daily iron in a 1/3 pound serving, and a 1/4 pound serving, 15% of your daily iron. And that's really important, especially for women. I saw a study recently that said that, probably more than 30% of women in America are anemic and don't get enough iron.
Since I was about 13 years old, I've been iron deficiency anemia. Whenever, on a rare occasion when I'm allowed to donate blood, they always prick my finger and they're like, go away. No.
This is a great way, so this is a great way of getting a lot of really, packing the nutrition in. So we now have two formats. So what's rolled out first is our frozen burger patties. So they're in the frozen burger section. They'll be in the grocery store, like at Giant or either of the Giants or Food Lion. So they'll be back either in the freezer doors where the Bubba Burgers and Beyond Burgers and Philly Burgers are. So they're usually in the beef burger freezer doors, or they'll be in those freezers those bunker freezers that are back in the meat department. So that's where you find them. So they're frozen. And then it's really great, because we all learned during COVID that frozen food is awesome. So you just buy it and keep it in your freezer and then don't worry about it. So, you can cook the patties right from frozen. So for people who are busy professionals and busy moms, and you're trying to get, dinner on the table for the kids before they have to run to practice, this is great. 15 minutes, from the freezer to the table, you can cook them from frozen. You don't have to think ahead. You don't have to thaw them out.
Really convenient.
It's really convenient. And then, and you can take those burgers and turn them into meals, right? Like I always say, like, don't think about it as a burger. Think about it as like a little pre-portioned meal, and take it thawed out, turn it into meatballs or tacos or whatever it is that you want. But we are launching a 1 pound brick. So that'll be coming out. We hope.
So now you got my attention, because
yeah.
I am.
So now you'll be able to do all sorts of different ground beef recipes with the brick format.
Yeah,
So,
I'm a big fan of shepherd's pie too. So, a little lamb and a little of the beef together, that actually really good.
check our social. So Chef Marina did a lamb shepherd's pie with the chicken and lamb blend, and it was really awesome. So,
and I'm sure like it really absorbed the flavors.
Yeah.
As you said, it brightens the flavors just because of the chicken content. That's going to be really exciting. I'm now really excited for this because I love cooking. It's my therapy. whenever I'm feeling overly stressed, I usually do a lot of baking or a lot of cooking. Anyone who's ever had to work with me and I come in with baked goods, you know I've had a rough day. So this is actually you're kind of like a therapist to me right now, where you're helping me out here. So you're launching in all these stores. You're hopefully going to come to California via Walmart soon. Can people order online yet, or is it?
So you can order online. So we do have a website up. I mean, we don't expect to do a huge amount of business through the online website, but we do have it available for people who want to order online at crossovermeats.com. And it's basically the same price as if you were buying it at the store. So you just have to buy a lot. You just have to buy a lot, but it goes in the freezer. And again, because we have to ship it with dry ice and so forth, we're not like really pushing the online channel, but we do have the online channel available. So we are available nationwide for people who want to order online. And I think, and I don't know, Wendy, if you experience the same thing. I think the other benefit that people really talk to me about that they like about the product is that you don't have that super heavy feeling after you've had like a big meat meal, right? You kind of feel lighter. And you don't.
Everyone says eat more chicken. It's healthier for you. It's it's a better meat, and this way you can still kind of enjoy burgers or pork or lamb, and not feel heavy afterwards.
Exactly. Exactly.
No, it's a perfect blend of everything. It really is. And yeah, you are resilient, because when we first started talking, we were kind of in the midst of COVID. We were still, I think, in the lockdown.
Yeah.
And, nobody was really able to leave. So you really did you said you put it on ice, you fed it with some water and some oxygen, and now you're ready to really launch. And maybe it's a blessing in disguise that it's now just more people are staying home now, working from home. I mean, I work from home remotely. So at lunchtime, I go down, I go to the kitchen, make myself something. This is perfect, especially from frozen. I'd forgotten about that feature. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've taken stuff out of the freezer. I'm like, tomorrow.
Right. Tomorrow. Yeah, no. So it's a super convenient that way. But going back to what we were talking about sustainability.
Yeah.
Agriculture is the third largest contributor to carbon emissions and climate change. And of that, ruminant animals is like the biggest part. So, and I think one of the things with sustainability is it's really hard to figure out how you make a personal impact, right? So, you try to use your reusable shopping bags and turn off your lights and, try not to use plastic bags and, use paper straws, which I think I found out actually have a bigger carbon footprint than plastic, but
not a great resolution.
Not a great resolution, but you do try. Yeah. But I think that sometimes you don't feel like you can really move the needle. So I'm gonna give you kind of an interesting statistic. So with Crossover, because we're 60% chicken, the environmental footprint is literally half of what a real beef burger or a real 100% lamb burger is. Half. That is literally the equivalent to over a kilogram of CO2. Right. Oh. So you're saving personally, like every time you eat a burger, you can save a kilogram. Every time you eat a Crossover burger, you can save a kilogram of CO2, and like 26 gallons of water. And, it's crazy. So, but what I thought was interesting is I went through, as we were preparing for this Walmart pitch, I went and I figured out, I got the data on how much ground beef that Walmart sells, either in frozen patties or in their fresh section. And I said, if I could convince all the manufacturers who sell product to Walmart to use our recipe and to make Crossover blends instead of 100% beef burgers, based on Walmart alone, we could roll back Amazon deforestation in 17 years. That's how much carbon the livestock industry creates.
Yeah.
And that's how big the environmental footprint of red meat is. That a single retailer, albeit the largest retailer in America, that probably sells more ground beef than anyone else. But if we were able to get all of the ground beef in Walmart, we could not only stop Amazon deforestation, but we could literally reverse it.
That's an interesting.
I think it's kind of something interesting to think about.
It gives people a good visualization. It helps me think, because one of my biggest complaints when people talk about sustainability is a lot of the times they're putting it on the consumer, saying you should do this, you should do that, recycle, And really, we should be looking at upstream where it's coming from. And it's like, why don't you guys provide something that's a little bit better? That way, it's not just on us to fix it on our end, which is the very last step, really.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing, is you're providing that upstream resource to do it better from the beginning. So then what we do as a consumer is helping move that along.
But only if you go out and buy burgers. So please go out and buy burgers.
Trust me, I live in Los Angeles. It's like Burger Town here. Everyone eats burgers. I mean, we go to certain places and we grade how good their burgers are.
Yeah.
So and I'm from the Midwest as well. So, I mean, yeah, this is a kind of a nationwide thing. And oddly enough, factoid, I was in Italy about a month ago. For the first time in my life, I saw burgers on the menus.
Wow.
Everywhere. This was in Tuscany. And I was like, what? Whoa, 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 whoa.
Right, the Americans have infiltrated.
Like, I don't want burgers when I'm in Italy. I want everything but it's apparently taken by storm. So look into Italy.
There we go.
They could probably use you.
So while I'm doing my Please Buy Burgers commercial, I will also say, please follow us. Please follow us on social. So we're on all the channels. We're on TikTok. I was TikToking the other day. I'm like, I'm too old to be TikToking.
You're a person.
We were doing demos in Giant. I was like running around TikToking. I'm like, this is ridiculous, but I'm doing it anyway because the marketing people told me I had to. But we're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. So please follow us on social. We do run and keep our followers updated on when we're running specials. So when the retailers are running promotions,
nice.
we have giveaways that are going on, and lots of just, good, juicy recipes and information about environmental impact. So hopefully it's fun and educational. And so please like and follow, and don't make fun of my TikTok videos.
Well, now you just sold it. I mean, now is the whole reason is to watch you do a TikTok video. You just put the hook out.
Oh, and we're looking for marketing interns. So if anybody has kids who are even during break, like even during holiday breaks and so forth, if anybody has kids, college kids, recent graduates who are looking for work, we're looking for marketing interns. So send them my way. Absolutely.
Got a few in my network myself, so I will definitely let them know. So Michelle, awesome. Thank you so much. I know you're traveling constantly, so I do appreciate your time. And guys, please check out Crossover Meats. It is an excellent resource to be sustainably minded. If you don't want to go vegan, I get it. If you don't want to go vegetarian, I get it. This is a great way to just lower carbon footprint and have an awesome burger. I've had it personally. I love it. So please check them out. And Michelle, when you guys open up and get launched in Walmart, come back here and let us know so we can let everybody know, because I think it's very important. So again, thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it.
I really appreciate you having me. Thanks, Wendy.
Anytime. So guys, I'm Wendy Nystrom, your host with Environmental Social Justice. We are now proudly sponsored by BioLargo. They make life better. So we'll catch you next time, guys. Have a great night. Bye.
Bye.
If I can find my little thing here.